Come on. Come on.
Call it. Farfetch. Time of death, 8:57 p.m., January 31st. It's happened. Farfetch is dead. Well, not exactly. The once $20 billion darling of the luxury e-commerce industry, set to revolutionize the way that everybody shops luxury goods online, nearly died, but got saved last minute in a fire sale by Coupang, so it's not exactly dead, but pretty darn close.
It is alive!
But the real question is, what happened to cause it to rise so high and then come crashing down in the years to follow? Well, I'm sure that Wall Street analysts can give you charts and graphs and analytics, but I'm gonna take a more humble approach. Having spent over a decade in the luxury industry working for luxury brands like Giorgio Armani and wholesale expanding their distribution around the world, I'm gonna take a perspective of somebody who was there from day one, seeing it rise through the ranks, and my opinion of exactly what caused the downfall of Farfetch. But before we begin, a moment of silence for our fallen comrade. Okay, we're back. Now, before we dive into things, I want to take you back to my first personal experience with Farfetch because I remember it like it was yesterday. Oh, wee old Nick, so much to learn. There I sat in my New York City fashion office, grinding away at Excel spreadsheets from last week's selling report, and I was just dreaming of spending days walking through the streets of Paris, going through the most luxury, amazing specialty boutiques that I could shop and find special items that I could just not find anywhere else in the world that were hand selected by the most amazing women with the best possible taste. But I was in New York, working away, with no way to get to Paris. And then came Farfetch, this incredible site that would allow me to get the perspective of each individual specialty boutique from Paris to Milan to Copenhagen and so many other places at the tips of my fingertips. I could see their perspective, shop their curated assortment of luxury brands, be introduced to brands I had never even heard of, all for the first time online. It was incredible. But a wise man once said, all good things must end, and so it did. So let's take a little walk down memory lane to talk about the key milestones before we get into exactly what caused the downfall of Farfetch. The year was 2007. Young shoe designer Jose Neves was traveling the world, selling his collection of specialty boutiques, and he had an idea. At this time, there was really only one site selling luxury goods online, and that was Net-a-Porter, founded by the godmother herself, Natalie Massenet. But realistically, all the luxury brands at that time had been pushing against selling online, so he had this idea of what if you could take the most exclusive luxury boutiques around the world and give them a place very easily to sell their goods and their perspective online. So along came Farfetch, a marketplace where at any given time you could shop individual curated boutiques from around the world, shop their merchandise, and have it fulfilled to your door in a matter of days. And with that perspective, it grew and grew and grew and grew until 2018 when it hit a $6.2 billion valuation and IPO'd on the New York Stock Exchange. Huzzah, a success. But that was just the beginning. So the stock did okay for the first couple of years, and the company kept growing okay. But little did we know. So then in 2020, a little thing called the coronavirus comes walking along. And we're all locked inside of our houses, thinking we might never leave. So what takes off like a rocket ship? E-commerce. And then what makes more sense than ever? If you're a luxury shopper, you're gonna buy it online. And what site should you buy that product from? Farfetch. So the valuation went wild, hitting a massive $22 billion valuation, which was nearly 13 times top line revenue of the business. But with great power comes great responsibility. With all this cash from the sky high valuation, they went crazy, and the losses continued to stack and stack and stack until they were on the edge of bankruptcy, near insolvency, with almost no money to survive.
Farfetch is a company that's losing a ton of money, which you know we don't like. And it's got no clear path to profitability, which you know we disdain.
So Coupang came in like the hero themselves and didn't even really pay, it sounds like, anything for Farfetch. The deal publicly said $500 million in cash available, which does not mean they bought the business for $500 million. But it was reported that Farfetch needed $500 million just to stay afloat, even after having such success just a few years earlier. So let's get into the single most important reason that Farfetch collapsed. And that is, they did not subscribe to this YouTube channel. Just kidding, just kidding. So in my opinion, to understand what went wrong, you have to go back to day one of the company. So let's take a look at their site from the fall of 2008 when they were literally just launching. And I think there's a lot here that sets the mission of the company that we'll get to in a second of where things went wrong. So when it talks about the what, it's a fresh alternative to a large, soulless department and chain store, where shoppers want to maintain a personal relationship with advised guidance that aid their shopping and the informed techniques that now only exist at independent boutiques. And all of this was on the back of the boutiques that they partnered with to highlight on the site. So if you look at the site in the early years, say 2008 through 2016, the order of how you experienced Farfetch was the site of which they presented to you these incredible stories of these boutiques. You can see on the homepage and websites that they really highlighted, here are our boutiques. You're shopping at each individual specialty boutique. That's their perspective, their assortment, and then the brands that they carry. So until around 2016 to 2017, so I would shop, which in the industry are essentially called concessions, which are basically micro websites per specialty boutique that would allow me to get their assortment, their specific product, their story, and everything that comes along with it. I could, of course, browse by brand and browse by product category, but I always had that option of knowing which boutique it's coming from and knowing if I was shopping in that boutique or not. And then I will never forget this day. I was standing in a boutique that had built a very good business on Farfetch over the years. They received an email from the company. And that email said, unfortunately, we are no longer going to be putting your microsite in front of our customers. Instead, you'll be hidden behind and you'll be the fulfillment of the product on the site, with Farfetch at the forefront, showing customers the brand and the product all blended together. Sounds kind of like a department store, huh? No longer would the customer journey be, I'd be shopping these boutiques, but now I would just shop the entire assortment all together as Farfetch. And that changed everything. Now, Farfetch is the curator of the product, and the stores are the fulfillment network behind it. Of course, it's their product, so it's their perspective, but because it's all blended together, they are now simply the fulfillment network. So what does this do? First and foremost, it now creates a competitive dynamic between the stores that built their businesses on the site and Farfetch itself. Now the stores are not the brand at the forefront to drive their customers to their storefront. At this time, D2C brands have been crushing it on Shopify, so actually as a luxury boutique, building your own e-commerce site was more accessible than ever at this moment, so they could just build their own site the way that Farfetch has presented them in the past, where they could show their assortment in isolation altogether with their story. In addition, luxury has almost always been primarily a store business. E-commerce is relatively new in the luxury industry. It's the last clothing market to really get into e-commerce. And every single store that was providing inventory to Farfetch was a store business, which means it had stylists working the floors with their client trying to sell their customers in store the best pieces they could provide them. Now, since they were just fulfillment network to Farfetch, that meant that as a stylist or a store associate, now I want to build that customer relationship. And so when things land in store, I want to try to do everything I can to actually not sell through Farfetch. I want to try to sell it to my clients first, sell it on my e-commerce site first, not just to avoid the commission I have to pay Farfetch, which ranges between 25 and 50%, but also because I want to give my clients the most exclusive product and the best product first. And that led to some questionable practices by retailers where when they ship product through Farfetch, they actually want to try to maintain them and bring them off of Farfetch onto their own website or in their own store outside of the Farfetch experience.
Things were crazy. Product would arrive in store and all of us stylists would run to the rack to quickly grab the product. We'd put it in the fitting room away for clients so that way Farfetch couldn't steal it from us and deliver it to customers without us knowing.
And at the same time, monobrand retailers such as Saint Laurent, Celine, Burberry started to fulfill their own product through Farfetch, the website as well. Even these monobrand retailers were primarily trying to own their story by expanding their own directly owned retail networks where they could curate their assortment to their customer and tell the story. And that leads into the next point. Luxury is and has always been about storytelling of the product and the brand. So once Farfetch becomes the curator, you have a hard time curating when your network of stores is just buying their own product for their micro environment. So if a store in Paris is buying product and another store in Copenhagen is buying product, all of that gets rolled up into one marketplace. It no longer tells really a cohesive story. It's just a mishmash of product from different stores that's overlapping, when if you just went to that store in Paris, it would tell that story itself in a microcosm. Which is why if you compare Farfetch to the largest luxury conglomerate on earth, LVMH, that's exactly why they haven't launched an LVMH e-commerce site where all the brands of LVMH sell on one e-commerce site. Instead, they have Louis Vuitton selling product in their own stores. They have Celine selling product in their own stores. And to the consumer, they may not even know that LVMH is the single owner of all of these brands, because each brand can tell their own story with their own product assortment. And even the fulfillment itself feels less luxurious, because I think I'm buying from Farfetch. I don't really know which boutique I'm buying from. So I might get a pair of shoes from one boutique shipped one way, I might get a jacket shipped another way, and so on and so forth. So let's take it back to the investors. Oh, the investors. Once Farfetch hit scale, and investors started coming in, pumping the valuation up, they did it on the thesis that Farfetch would be the next Amazon, or would be the Amazon of luxury, which to me is kind of hilarious. Because if you look at Amazon, they are a marketplace who knows their value to the customer.
It's selection, low prices, and fast, convenient, reliable delivery.
The problem is those three things, the widest assortment, the cheapest price, and the fastest delivery, are the exact opposite of luxury. In luxury, you want things that are more exclusive. You want things that are the highest price, or a high price, because that means there's quality behind it. And by nature, everything should be slow. That doesn't mean shipping needs to be slow per se, it's a little literal, but the act of buying luxury is slow. Luxury started with couture, where I would wait sometimes 8 to 12 months to get my dress from that brand. So as Farfetch had to drive their sales up and up, what did they have to do? Put more and more and more product onto the site. Thousands of SKUs from more and more boutiques, which in of itself was the opposite of luxury. So in reality was, investors thought that Farfetch could be the Amazon of luxury, and really those two things may not make sense together. You might not even want to be the Amazon of luxury. And this example, the larger you get, the less luxurious the experience becomes, the less special it feels. So what exactly does the future hold in store for Farfetch? Can they overcome this problem and be the e-commerce platform the luxury industry had always hoped for? Well, frankly, I'm not sure. One man's opinion, if they were to make the change and once again put the stores at the forefront, it would be a better experience for the long run, as well as find ways to make the site more special and more exclusive while still growing in volume. It could potentially become something great again, but it may be too far too gone. Luxury boutiques around the world might be focusing again on their in-store business, growing their own e-commerce sites, and have really no desire to be fueling the Farfetch business as much. Or like all fashion trends, maybe there will be a new special site that comes up. And I would say if for some reason they cannot find a way to create profitability because it has not been a business that's drove profits very frequently, I'm not sure it will even exist in 10 years. However, I want to close with the luxury industry owes them a debt of gratitude, because Farfetch undoubtedly pushed the luxury industry forward in a way of thinking about the digital landscape that almost no other company has ever done. They got brands thinking about e-commerce as a serious part of their business, and boutiques around the world thinking that they can tell their story online and give an omni-channel experience to their customers. So for that, we salute you. But you can guarantee one thing, I'll be watching.